To all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our masterclass right now, our perspective session that we are going to have. We are going to discuss, and we continue to discuss actually, the aspect of the connected vehicle, which is in focus. We are also going to look at autonomous driving. We are going to look at safety, at innovative business models, and also the personalization of the connected car, as we are going to experience this in future. Now, what can you expect? What are we going to do? In a second, I will quickly introduce you to our two experts, which are sitting next to me. Then we are going to have two presentations, one followed by the other. And then afterwards, we are going to discuss the most important subjects from your point of view. So please, as we have already experienced yesterday, drop your questions, rate existing ones, and then we can actually have a conversation according to your customization. Good. So I would right now like to introduce you to Theo-Han Jansen. And Theo-Han, he is the Vice President Strategy and Product Management at WirelessCar on the right-hand side. And next to me is Larberg, and he is the head of software-defined vehicle and also open source software from the IAV. Okay, so right now I hand over directly to you, Theo-Han. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Theo-Han Jansen. It's great to be here. Great conversations yesterday, also this morning, so super excited. Yesterday, during the first panel discussion, there was immediately a question for the audience, which was, if I remember well, what we, being in the audience, see as the biggest trend going forward and changing the automotive industry. And the feedback from the audience, from all of us, was autonomous driving, artificial intelligence, no surprise. If I remember well, sustainability, collaboration, and then the fifth, let's say, most responded word was consumer focus. And that's what I like to share some thoughts on today. There's a lot of discussion on software-defined vehicle, about the technology, the complexity, who's doing what does it mean? And I like to talk a bit about, okay, what does it mean for the consumer? What value can it bring? If we look first at mobility, we can see that there's a transformation going on. And I mean, there's a lot of discussions happening also this morning. What is driving this transformation? Of course, first one is the autonomous mobility. And we know that even though if the growth is not going that fast as we all expected, it's still going forward. There were colleagues here from Moya, from Uber. We've seen the merge between ShareNow and Free2Move, Didi in China. The amount of hours customers are spending in shared vehicles is still growing. So this is definitely something which is changing what's happening in the mobility. Then, as we said, also a lot of conversation about the autonomous driving. There was the panel before here, still a lot of challenges. Still a lot of barriers. If you look at the growth numbers for level 3, level 4, the expectation by 2030 is that in China could be between 25–30% deployment, mainly because of legislations. If we look at the predictions for Europe and the US market, the growth is not that large. And again, I think from the earlier conversation, we've understood some of the reasons why it's still not going that fast. But nevertheless, it's one other aspect which is driving this transformation. Electrification, okay, say no more. A lot of conversations yesterday about this. We all know that this is the reality. I was a bit surprised yesterday. There was a question, are EVs dead? And I think the bigger picture is important, is that the reason why we talk about EVs is that we all know we have to do something about what's happening with the planet and what's happening with the environment. So definitely bringing more EVs on the market is one way to work on that, and that will continue to happen, and it will continue to grow. Another thing which is changing the way we perceive mobility is really the digital consumer lifestyle, because this is really changing the way how we as consumers perceive and engage with the mobility. We want a seamless experience, we want things on demand, we want some kind of digital integration. So what we can say in the summary is that mobility is transforming into a more efficient, safe, and sustainable way of transport. Now let's have a closer look to what's happening with the consumer, because of the widespread of the internet and the digitalization, we as consumers have a completely different lifestyle in respect of 5 or 10 years ago. What are the main things we see are changing? First of all, is we are getting more and more used to a personalized experience. If I go on Amazon, I get recommendations or suggestions what to buy based on historically or my previous purchases. The same is when I open my profile page on Netflix, I get suggestions which movies to watch or which series to watch. And this is all based on AI, machine learning, all the data, and I get this kind of personalized experience put in front of me. And we're getting more used to that, all of us. Social media is another important aspect. Social media is changing the way how we take decisions on purchase. So there is influencers, there's product placement, there's personalized marketing messages on the social media channels. And this has a big impact on how we decide what product or service to buy. Another thing we've learned during the pandemic is that we've become kind of used to the fact that we want things on demand. So whether it's transport, whether it's streaming service, whether we want to buy stuff, we are looking for this instant gratification, which means I know what I want and I have the opportunity to get it immediately. So that's another thing which is a big game changer. And then we want to, and I think it was mentioned also yesterday in some of the conversations, we want to have this seamless experience. So I want to be able to buy or order my food online, and then I can still go to the supermarket to pick it up. Or I can do my banking at home online, but I still can go to the branch to sort out certain stuff. So there's the online and offline experience, which are still a reality, but these two worlds have to be some kind or some way merging together. So we can say that we are really used to this new, I said, digital and connected lifestyle day to day. So what happens if we bring these two worlds together? So what happens if we look at there's the transformation in mobility happening, and there's the transformation from a consumer perspective. These two things together have some effects. One of them is the fact that, as we mentioned before, you want customization. So I'm interested that when I get into the car, I want an in-car experience, an immersive experience, which is personalized for me based on what I want to see in my entertainment in the car or the feature set I want to have in the car. That's one result. The other one is I expect my mobility and my car to be updated all the time. I know this is possible with my computer, with my phone, so why not in the car? So I want the latest features, the latest performance. I want the latest version of the security. I expect that everything is always up to date. Contextual and predictive, like we said before about Netflix, here is a bit the same. So through AI and machine learning now, we can really push a contextual experience to the driver, or we can predict things. You could think about, I'm driving out of the city, I'm on the motorway, and because the car knows I'm doing a trip on the motorway, it could be interesting to switch on the level 3 or level 4 ADAS capability, which I don't need in the city. Another example is I put in the navigation system a trip to go skiing in Austria, and immediately I get an in-car purchase opportunity to buy, I don't know, a ski pass or a ski insurance policy for that day. Those are examples of things which, because we have that experience outside the car, the consumer is kind of also expecting that to happen in the car. And again, we want all this to be seamless, right? So we want, whether it's the configuring of the car, the purchase of the car, the finance, but also when I own the car, I want this digital seamless experience. And in industry, there's a lot of talk about omni-channel, and that is definitely one of the consequences of these two worlds merging. So what we can say is that the car is really, truly becoming an integral part of our digital connected lifestyle. So what is the role of software-defined vehicle in this? Well, one thing we can do, for example, is we can create shorter product life cycles. And what we mean with this is that instead of having the car for 6 years, or yesterday someone said 14 or 15 years, without any changes to it, thanks to software-defined vehicles, we can push new features, new experiences to the car every 6 months, every year. So as a consumer, I perceive that my car is always up to date and is always in a shorter product cycle loop, if you wish. And on top of that, of course, I can also maintain the residual value of the car, which is also becoming more and more important. Another example is if there is a software-defined vehicle stack, there is the opportunity to react quicker to innovations. A good example is in the last couple of weeks, there have been some announcements on OEMs integrating ChatGPT-based in-car voice assistants. And they were able to do that because a part of their stack, software-defined vehicle stack, was already available and capable of doing that integration in a very rapid way. So that's a good example how software-defined vehicles can help bring innovations quickly to the car. Another important thing is that if we have a software-defined vehicle stack, it's easier for the OEM to look for partners, to look for integrations, to look for content. There's a big discussion going on what the OEM should do, what they should not do. What is differentiating for them, what is not differentiating, what could be considered intellectual property and what not. And what role do the partners play, how much knowledge the OEM should acquire themselves, or can they work with partners? In a software-defined vehicle world, this integration of third-party contents and capabilities is much more easier. And related to that, there is also the fact that it's more flexible to have an interoperability of the different systems in the software-defined vehicle ecosystem. So we like to think that, coming back to the beginning of the discussion, that the software-defined vehicle is really enabling this digital consumer experience. And again, it was mentioned a couple of times yesterday, it's super important that we as industry leaders keep in mind that technology is important, but there should be a purpose behind it. And in this case, I was looking forward to share with you some thoughts on, okay, what value can we create for the consumer in that sense. Just a couple of words about us at WirelessCar. Who are we? This year is our 25th anniversary. We've been working focused on connected services, so really enabling the connected sustainable mobility. We have, I think we have over 12 million cars connected at the moment in more than 100 countries globally, and we keep them running, as rightly someone said earlier today. It's important that then also that connectivity is guaranteed at all times in order to deliver the connected experience, whether it's safety, whether it's convenience. And we do this by a modular and SaaS-based delivery model. And in that way, we are able to really, coming back to what I mentioned before, we are able to tailor our offering and respond to the opportunities or the requests we get from the car makers in order to help them with that. That's what we're doing. We say we empower future mobility. Thank you for that. That was it from my side, and I look forward to the discussion going forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Theo-Han, for the insights. Just a short question. I see that there are a couple of questions already coming in from the audience. This software-defined vehicle, is this actually some sort of attribute which is triggering the buyer behavior, so that a lot of customers, they say, this is what we actually want, and this makes a difference?
So that's a good question. Software-defined vehicle as such, not. But what software-defined vehicle enables obviously has a big impact also in the purchase decision of consumers. It enables safety features, it enables convenience features, it enables, we talked about this digital consumer experience. Mm-hmm. We had a look at some numbers about decision criteria from consumers when they buy a car in Europe, in China, different age groups, and it's incredible because especially the younger generation, like between 20 and 30% of the decision criteria to buy a new car. They're looking really at what the digital experience is. Whereas if there's the older, like myself, the older range of customers, they are less interested in that, and they're looking for other stuff. So to your point, so by doing software-defined vehicles, we can kind of help the OEM respond to that expectation.
Okay, so and the other question, I mean, you also referred to the shorter product life cycle, basically, yeah? So, I mean, in my understanding, that means on a regular basis, there are going to be some sort of refreshments, basically,
yes.
features. So, and I mean, does the customer need to pay for that, or no, how will it work?
That's depending a lot on the strategy of the OEM, obviously. Some stuff we will see that they will expect some kind of payment, whether it's on a subscription based or whether it's really, you know, to switch something on permanently. Yeah. It depends on what kind of a solution or kind of update we're talking about, because consumers might be willing to pay for, I don't know, additional horsepower or a more augmented reality experience in the car, but not necessary for some safety-related updates, stuff which they really expect to get in the car. So that will really differ case by case.
Okay, thank you very much. As you can see here, there are a lot of questions already from the audience.
All right.
Yes, please take a seat. And this gives us the opportunity to hand over to Andre. So that means, Andre, right now the stage is yours. Yes. We are eager to learn from you.
Thank you. All right, so yes, I'm Andre Larberg. I'm a computer scientist. I work with IAV. And today we want to talk about connected vehicles. So vehicles in themselves are still, you know, physical products, right? You can still, you know, have a steering wheel. I mean, as of now, right? So maybe in the future we have pinch and zoom and swipe for navigating through the city, but nowadays it's still a physical thing. And to have a fully digitalization of that, we think software, and we know software is the key for that, right? And what we basically say is that mastering software is the key for, you know, the mobility future, right? So you have to make sure that there are several things you have in your connected vehicle that are, let's say, properly built, right? So for one thing, it's important to have an end-to-end architecture which helps you to achieve your goals, right? We talk about this on the next slide. Also, you got to make sure that, you know, your software itself, right, is fully understood. You can imagine that you have embedded software, you have, let's say, high-performance software, even in a car, right? It's still embedded, but nowadays we have high-performance computing. So it's not microcontrollers now, it's microprocessors. And you also have IT, and you also have, you know, backend things, right? You have the cloud. And even though they do look the same, you know, it's more like, you know, apples and bananas. You can eat both of them, but one of them you probably have to peel before, right? Spoiler alert, it's the banana. And also what you gotta have to do is talk about full digital lifecycle management, right? So once you have software in the car and you have to connect it to the internet, you probably make sure that you drive some updates. Even though, as we just had it now, it's not only every time a new function, sometimes it's even security or safety. Yes, that means for, you know, we're an engineering company, right? So our market success is bound to mastering software, right, as it says here. So it's really, really important to have a software architecture that lasts for even decades, right? So you really have to think about it, that it's really proper, that you don't mess it up maybe, right? So that's one key part. Also, engineering part. In automotive, it's different to, let's say, mobile apps or web apps, or you have to make sure that your engineering is, you know, for at least homologation or safety concerns written properly. So that's another part. And like I said, the digital lifecycle management, yeah, you gotta have it. And with those three, we say like this is what keeps us or brings us to mastering software. So I actually brought three different, let's say, products from us with me today. So this one is called the heat shuttle. It's an actual shuttle. We also have at some place real pictures of it, so you can believe me, it's real. It was driving in Hamburg Hafen City. It is a hop-on, hop-off device, as we call it, so it's not that fast, but you can, get on it, get off it, and it's fully autonomous, so it's fully electric, and we also have, developed it with the city of Hamburg. We have developed a control center, of course, to know where is the car actually and things like that. We worked with different sensor providers, of course, because it's not possible for us to do everything at once. We come to that later. And it's also connected to the city itself, right? It's not only car to car, it's also car to infrastructure, for example. And we think in the future there's more to come. I'm not sure if some of you guys know Catena X or Gaia X, where we also heavily invested, where we talk about things like the EDCs, like containers for sharing information. So really great project. If you want to know more, just hit us up. We're happy to explain things for that. So another fun project we have, it's actually also real. It also is something which is really running on the streets. So it's our very own, IV's very own mobility platform. So you can imagine that you not only want to have, in urban areas like Hamburg, a hop-on, hop-off device, but in rural areas, where maybe your grandparents live, or where there's not that much traffic, you want to have something like a Rufbus concept in German, right? So you have your mobile application, and you can say like, okay, I want to have a bus now, and I want to go somewhere, right? And in that service we have, which we are running in 2 communities as of now, and we're heavily scaling that. You can imagine that we have ride-hailing. We also have like ride pooling, and it's a full-blown concept, which also is running on, of course, servers. We host that software as well. And now comes the fun part. Everything we did there, so it's a full-blown thing you can use, is open source by us. So every community in, let's say, Germany or South America can probably take that open source software and can run it there. And one thing we had was, business models, as Theo-Han was explaining it. Our business model here, it's an open source business model, is hosting, okay? Because we, let's say, earn some money with hosting the software, and let's run it for all the different communities. So, also really interesting, I would say. The next thing is something which is called charge and load management. So what we did is we developed a cloud-based intelligent charging and control system for electric fleets, right? So not just for one car, but for a lot of cars or vehicles. And what we did is we took all the vehicle data, put it in the cloud, and then with that data we were able to identify when to charge and load your fleet. Yes, of course, that's maximize CO2 reduction, also cost reduction, and we already tested it on large electric fleets. So maybe the color yellow is giving it a little bit away what kind of large electric delivery fleet that could have been. All right. And all those things we did, right? We didn't do all by ourselves, right? And I think, and we think that, in the future, if you want to do connected cars, if you want to do the software-defined vehicle, if you want to, shape the future somehow, you're not doing it as a single player, right? You're doing it as a multiplayer, so we're really, really keen in cooperation. So it could be that we do a whole bunch of a project or just a small one. And what we also do, and that's again the open source part, we are working with different organizations together, like the Eclipse Foundation, where we are in the Software-Defined Vehicle Working Group. And there is the superset of that, which is the SDV Alliance nowadays, where Autosar, Covisa, Solfi, and Eclipse Foundation are working together. So that's a total shift for the automotive industry. Just imagine that 10 years before, nobody would believe you, right, that this is possible. So it's really, really important to, I think we had it in the session before, for, let's say, getting it all together, right? So working on something which is like a standard for the automotive industry, but more from every player. Yes. So if you want to connect, if you want to cooperate with us, we're happy to get connected. And yes, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andre. And I mean, I see there are a series of questions, and one question is the second one. How can we ensure security regarding hackers? It goes into both directions, to both of you. But I mean, especially to you right now, Andre, as you have emphasized open source. This is your way of doing the things. And to be quite honest, I would have thought that open source and automotive industry is some sort of a contradiction. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about open source and maybe already try to answer the first question here?
Yes. So actually that really fits into each other. You can imagine that if we're talking about cybersecurity, it's always best to open up all your algorithms, right? So there is no such thing as security through obscurity, as it's called. So you don't want to have backdoors or whatever in your software. So it's always better to open up your security software so everybody can take a look at it and see if it's really secure. That's one thing. And ensuring the security is maybe bound to what I said in the beginning with the architecture, right? So you probably have something like a chain of trust, which is without any gap in between. But once you have a little gap, your full chain of trust is broken, right? So we have to make sure that we do this properly. I know that's not maybe the answer of how to do that, but it's basically it's good engineering.
Okay, good. And from your side?
Security is super important, and I think the more we interact with the vehicle remotely, obviously, and the deeper we go into the vehicle systems, it becomes even more important. So from our side, connecting 12.5 million cars, we have a huge team, and there's a huge effort put into making sure that we can be compliant, first of all, with all the regulations there are in the different regions of the globe, and make sure that we do everything we can to stay on top of the risks that are related to the data.
Okay, good. And I mean, in your presentation, Theo-Han, you referred also to Netflix and Amazon, who make some suggestions. And here we have a question which is rated by 4 likes, which is someone stating, I'm missing the smartphone. And he or she states that this is the current center of our digital life. And where is this in the discussion? Shouldn't the seamless integration be a focus area there? Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. That is absolutely correct. And I think I mentioned the words or the topic seamless on 2 different slides. It's a super important topic. It's an expectation of the consumer that whatever we are experiencing from a digital perspective, which includes the smartphone outside the vehicle, when we go in the vehicle or close to the vehicle, we want to have a seamless and as similar as possible experience. There will be some things which can be done through the smartphone, which can also be done through the car or through the HMIs or the screens on the cars. There are other things which cannot be done on a phone simply because not all of the capabilities or information which are inside the vehicle, which are managed inside the vehicle, will be pushed onto a screen, a remote screen. Yeah. So yes, absolutely, smartphone is super important and is part of our consumer digital connected lifestyle, and therefore there should be this seamless experience when I go towards or in the car.
Okay, Very good. And Andre, I mean, you referred also to the Erzmobil and the charging example. Yeah.
Yeah. So just before we had Volkswagen Infotainment,
Yes,
they were
yes.
saying like Volkswagen is a mobility company more
Yeah.
than just producing cars. And I think there it is, right? So you have probably your smartphone and you want to have mobility, right? And it could be one part in the car and it could be also one part in, getting your Erzmobil.
Yeah.
So it's totally in the center. We know that. We maybe just mentioned it enough, but yes, it's there.
It's
Totally.
there. Okay, good. So then on the smartphone question, we can make a tick in the box. And in your example that you gave, you also said by charging there, the fleet CO2 can be reduced and cost can be reduced there. Do you have some percentage, rough percentage? What is the saving potential there?
I don't have the real numbers, right? That's not what we do. Talking about real numbers because it's we have customers and whatnot. Nevertheless, you can just imagine as more vehicles you have, as more are you cost saving. Because if you just save, you can imagine if you have your route going through the city and you just need like 80% of charge because you know that of your data, you only charge for 80 or let's say 85% your vehicle, then you just already save 15% of battery charge. And if you just not have one car but let's say 100 vehicles or 1,000, so that's easy math, right?
Yeah,
so
it's easy. Okay, good. Point taken. Very good. So then we have a question here with another 4 likes, which is, what are the opportunities available to the OEMs to monetize actually the anonymized car data? There are few companies that already are paying customers who are happy to sell this data. What is your experience? Yes, and you are...
Because I'm always happy when I see these questions. I had the I don't know if I should say pleasure or challenge in my former professional life to try to make this happen and try to, when I was inside the OEMs, try to monetize data. It's super complicated because the big challenge is that the ratio between value of vehicle data, which is anonymized and non, is like 20% of the total value will remain if you anonymize the data. So that means that you need a huge amount of car data, a huge amount of cars where you're collecting data from. So from my experience, the business case is not there. It's very hard to make all the efforts and the cost necessary to. I mean, there were data aggregators. I will not name the names, but there were 2 or 3 which even got listed in the US, and then like 6 months later, there's nothing left anymore. And that I think that shows a little bit that it's a bit of a hype. That we can make money out of connected car data. My personal experience of the last 20 years, it's super hard, and in particular if you want to do it as an aggregator.
I see. Okay. And from the IAV point of view?
It looks like a low-hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
On the other side, when I read anonymized car data, actually that's hard to do.
Okay.
Because you can always recalculate and you if you want to give this to your customers, you want to make sure that it's really anonymized.
Yeah.
And if you're not able to do that,
And also there's no regulation on that, right? So then it's really open to the interpretation of the country or the legal department in the OEM themselves to say, okay, it must be like this, to your point, because this is what we consider is anonymized. And then, okay, what is the value? And then for a different OEM, maybe there are different rules again. So
exactly, and also different areas, right? So you can, when we're talking about Asia, it's different to Europe, different to the US. So. Yeah.
I mean, we have 2 questions. One is going into the direction of the data gold or digital gold, and the other one is about the regulatory frameworks. But let's start with the one here. How can we push cooperation, basically? At the moment, the author of this question says, I can only see a few players that feel comfortable by sharing information, and the others, they seem to actually, they are scared to lose this golden data, basically. So your view on it, Andre?
So cooperation, it's not only open source, right? But if we are looking for open source point of view, you can imagine that, of course, if it's the Erzmobil, we have like a routing algorithm.
Yeah.
And maybe that's better than the one from Moya, just could be, right? Or the Moya one is better. So if we would do both open sourcing, right, this is something we could share, right?
Okay.
And comfortable to do that comfortably, yeah, you have to do it, right? You have to try it, and that's what we are doing.
Yeah.
That's why we're going the open source way in this case. And yeah, let's see what's happening. What we already know is if we don't cooperate, we don't get that far, right?
Okay.
Yeah, like in the African saying, you probably know that, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you go with others, right? Something like that.
Okay, good.
This also came out yesterday, right? What I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation in the Word Cloud. I think collaboration was the third or the fourth biggest response from the audience. And I think also Augustine mentioned it earlier this morning, that collaboration and partnership is super important. The technology is evolving in a way that it allows for modularity, it allows for integrating and picking really capabilities and contents from other partners using their technologies and having a framework, whether it's open source or whether it's I don't know, standard APIs, whatever direction you go, but that can really facilitate the collaboration and the partnership.
I see.
Then whether it's really digital gold, as I said before, we can argue about that.
Okay, okay, good. So this was the aspect about the golden actually data, and then we had the second question, which is here directly below, which is about the regulatory frameworks there, and you already referred to this also, that we have different continents, different legislation there. So actually, what should be done? What kind of regulatory frameworks should be developed to govern the use of connected vehicles? Andre, do you have some experience or a point?
Yes, so maybe that's even only my personal view here. We shouldn't talk about, closed regulatory things and strict things. We should talk about, open frameworks and open, collaboration and that kind of open
some
regulations.
Rules, maybe some rules or
Of
some
course,
principles, yeah.
Yes, maybe it's an API, right? So you should have an API, but it should be open to everybody, not closed. Right.
Do you also see it like this? Yeah.
Yeah. So there are already existing regulations in different regions globally who kind of try to govern from a, let's say, at least from our perspective, from a infrastructure provider perspective, there are rules we have to comply with, beyond the specific cybersecurity topics. Having said that, then there are specific areas, whether it's ADAS, whether it's data privacy, whether it's GDPR, whether it's the ability for the consumer to ask data back from the car maker when they sell the car, which is a reality. So there are some specific areas there, and I think we are going in the right way. There will also always be differences region by region. So yes, whether there will be a global way to govern regulations around connected vehicles, I'm not sure if that will happen.
Okay, good, fine. So, and then we have another question, which is here: by when are our cars going to be connected with each other? So what is your...
Yeah, there was a good conversation earlier. There was the colleague, I think, from Volkswagen Infotainment mentioning it, and also a little bit, I think, the panel before. That would be really, from my perspective, a big step forward. There are also here, a bit related to autonomous driving, a lot of challenges, a lot of issues. And as long as that, at least from our experience, as long as there is no regulation or standardization on how the communication should be done, it will become very hard for any stakeholder in the industry to invest money in that, unless, like VW is doing now, and I think there are one or two other OEMs who will enable vehicle-to-vehicle between their own brands, or brands of their own group, if you wish. But for a mass deployment, it's super important that the regulatory bodies sort themselves out and agree on standards. And I know that there are drafts on that, and I think, I'm not sure, maybe in China they're already a step ahead on that, where the government basically enforced the regulations. and hence you can see
Yes.
a steeper growth of expectation of then vehicle to vehicle and self-driving cars. So I think regulatory is definitely an important hurdle there.
Okay, so definitely one step to go. And from your point of view, Andre?
Yeah, so I already mentioned earlier the EDC, the Eclipse data space containers, so which is in Gaia X or Catena X, a standard to communicate not only from vehicle to vehicle, but to the whole infrastructure, right? And it's about contracts, because you sometimes have to have contracts when you exchange data and things like that. So I think we're getting it sooner as later. Let's put it this way.
Okay, good. So I think also for the next Automotive Masterminds Forum, we will have enough topics to discuss. We discussed already a lot, but we need to end our masterclass right now. So a big thank you to the two of you, to Andre Larberg from the IAV, and also to Theo-Han Jansen from WirelessCar. Big thank you, and this is your applause. Yeah.